All right, so this video is about all things Client Portal. We'll have a look at how to open it, how to preview the Client Portal to get a sense of what the recipient would be seeing. We'll have a look at when and how to invite the clients. We'll have a look at how to share different things. So from the documents area, from the sharing items, aka the share buttons that you'll see on, say, the quote letter screen or the variation screen, etc. And we'll have a look at sharing from the site diary because that's a unique one. There'll be other tips and tricks along the way, namely around how to message the clients through it, how to see their messages. So we'll cover quite a lot in this video. Now, point one, how to open the Client Portal. This is in a way a bit of a trick question because you don't really open it per se. What happens is as soon as a lead exists, there is a Client Portal in existence. It's kind of just sitting behind the scenes waiting for its day. And up until you start sharing things into it or inviting the client, whichever comes first, it's not really doing anything useful. It's just sitting there waiting for its moment. That said, you absolutely do need a lead in order to use the Client Portal. So this kind of brings me on to a bit of a side point. We will have some users who maybe didn't use leads when they're creating things, and they've just got a list of estimates, but now want to use the Client Portal. And the question we get a bit is, what do I do? Is it still possible? The answer is, yeah, you can absolutely fix it, but you do need to create a lead, even if it's after the fact. So just as an example here, looking at one of my quotes, you'll see it has the lead noted up the top. And if I go into another one, this sample one here, you'll see it has no lead noted because it's not linked to a lead. If I go down on the estimate details page, I can see lead details. It's confirmed it's not linked to anything. The way you fix this is you have to link the estimate to a lead. And when you click this button, it'll search the leads for anything under that client's name. And you'll have the choice of, hey, look, do you want to link it to this existing lead? You can also go add lead and create a new one at this point. So up to you how exactly you want to do it, but really the takeaway is if the lead didn't exist in the first place, it's really not the end of the world. The only case that we cannot solve for is if you didn't do an estimate either, you just created a job on its own, we can't link the job to the Client Portal. There has to be an estimate in the middle to make that link happen. So back to my lead and covering off another question we get, which is, hey, look, I like the idea of the Client Portal, but I really just want to know what people see on the other side, making sure I'm communicating well with the client, etc. Now, in the lead or in the estimate, in fact, I'm going to be flicking back and forward a little bit here. In the lead or in the linked estimate, you will have a Client Portal section. They function entirely the same, and in both areas, you have a preview button. So when you click preview, I'm just going to go into this screen and log out to show you what you would be seeing. When you click preview, it's going to take you to a screen like this. And a point of confusion we sometimes get is people go, hey, like I'm already logged into BuildExact. Why do you want my details again? What you're doing here is you're not logging into your main BuildExact account per se. You're logging into your version of the Client Portal. So if you hit preview the first time, it'll ask for this. If you have created portals in the past, you generally won't get asked for this. You can absolutely make the login details the same as your BuildExact account, but they are distinctly separate. So if I log into one that I've already created, kind of carrying on from that point about you having your own portal, when I go into mine, I've got 8 projects and mine are all for the same client for the most part, in fact, for pretty much entirety. But the point I want to make is once you have portals where you have invited clients to it, they all show up in your one preview portal. So what that means is you can go between them rather than having to go back to the lead, hit preview on each single one. You go in here and they just all appear. And a related point is if you do repeat work for the same client, like I have in my example account, the client gets a similar view of this. They'll see all projects where you and them have worked together with the Client Portal, and they can actually flick between projects in the same kind of way. Awesome. Now, while we're in this preview mode, let's give you a bit of a tour. So I'm going to go into one of the projects. I clicked here, which is exactly the same as picking from the list down here. So it's this one I'm using. Click to open. So the main sections that are relevant to the client, number one, timeline. This is where they get rolling updates. These come from a few different places. So as I'm getting to the sharing of documents, I'll point out where and how you do that. Messages, naturally you can message them, they can message you. Each message, think of it as like a thread. So it's very similar to how like a text message works. Once the message is open, you can go back and forth on the same topic, or you can create a new message on a different topic. Note that, and I'm going to go back to the timeline for a second, the client will see a lot of new message buttons around the place. And if we were to click this one in relation to the timeline message, it would go and create a new message linked to the shared thing. So we do this on purpose. Like if I use quotes as another example, they can do a new message and it would come up linked to the quote. So you know that they're asking a question about the quote, even if they don't specifically say that. So into quotes, it's very similar to if you were sharing a quote via email. It looks the same. They can go through it, they can download it, they can message you. Special note that if you use the digital signature option on the quotes or variations, the signature can be done from in here, much the same as if you just emailed it to them. Lovely. Next one, selections. Now selections could have its own video, or has its own video on how it works and how the client selects things. So I'll be kind of brief here. And if you are interested in using selections, go check out that other video. But simply put, you share things into the client portal. The client can select, deselect, request items, and they get a sense of kind of when things are to be picked by. Now, special note for when you're previewing, I've actually set this particular example up where I'm a client. So I have full access. I can change whatever I want. If you're previewing, note that you cannot select things within the portal because that's the client's job. If you do want to select it on behalf of the client, you do that from the selections area. Similarly, you can't create messages from here. You have to do it from the main build exact area, which we'll touch on in a second. And the point here is that if you were creating them from here, you would essentially be messaging yourself. So lucky last few, plans, documents, all pretty self-explanatory. You know, we're pulling this from, in the case of variations, from the variations section specifically, and we'll see this a lot more clearly when we actually share things. But definitely have a preview, see what the client sees, and get a sense of what's in here. One other point, just while I'm thinking of it, there is a portfolio area, and we sometimes get the question, where did these photos come from? Way back when you set your account up, under the My Business section, there is a gallery area. This is the photos that show to the client if you want a portfolio area, and you can have up to 6 different ones. So you may find that some of them get a bit old, you delete them, you add new ones, that's completely fine. Awesome. So let's talk about when and how to invite the client. So back to this lead again. You'll see I've actually invited someone already. When I hit invite, it gets the invitation message ready to send. I can add individuals. So by default, it'll have the details for the main person on the account, but you might want to invite, like it could be a husband, wife, and they both want separate access, or it could be even a family member-in-law, a parent-in-law or something like that, where they're partially funding the project and they want access to. My only word of caution here is once people are in the portal, you can't get them out. And we're going to touch more on this when we share documents, but we treat the portal very much like almost like a historic document or historic area, where once something's in there, it's in there for good. And we do that so that if the situation arises where people need to look back at something, let's say there's a dispute on the project, neither party can go and remove things. And equally so, you can't kick people out. So I would avoid adding people that may not see the duration of the project. So I'm thinking specifically of, say, architects in this case, but I'm sure there's other cases where people may not see it through. And in that case, I would have tried to avoid inviting them. If you really get into a pinch, let us know. We can talk you through some options, but that's a bit of advice there. Now, I can invite either of these people. Bonus point, if I invite someone who's already invited, that's just sending them a reminder. And the most obvious case for this is where you've invited someone to the portal and they come back saying, oh, hey, sorry, I lost the invite. It's in my junk. I don't know, it got deleted. Resend it, please. You just go invite and you pick them again and send the invitation all over again. When they get this message, it will prompt them to go to the portal and set up a login much the same way as you would do if you're previewing. And then this gives them access to that portal. Awesome. Now, from here, let's go have a look at sharing things. And while I'm in here, I'm actually going to start with the communications area. So communications for me is the messages equivalent. And I'm going to flip back and forward a lot here to try and show you the build exact side versus the client side. So communications is messages. So in here, you can start new messages. You can see what messages are open. You'll be alerted of new messages actually under the communications area. So if I go in here, you'll see I've got notifications and conversations, I should say. Conversations, these are all related to client portals. So this is where I'll get alerts of new things. Personal preference, once I see an alert, I like going back to the lead and doing communications here so that I'm just focused on that portal only. But you can absolutely create and manage conversations through the communications tab as well. Now into the sharing of things. So where can you share from? The answer is there's a lot of ways you can share to the portal. So any documents area that's linked to either the lead or an estimate that's linked to that lead, or the job that's linked to that estimate, which is a bit of a confusing way to say it. A way to simplify that is if I click estimates up here, you'll actually see I've got 3 estimates all linked to one lead, and hence all of those are linked to one portal as well. So if I was to add something into a document, let's just say whatever it is. Side point, the client sees your foldering names in your documents for the things only that you've shared. So I guess point here is I try and keep organized because the client sees that, and also just to be conscious of what you're writing into the folder names. But if I put something in here and go share, that shares into the portal. And the reason for highlighting this is there's a few reasons. One is you can absolutely have documents that are not visible to the client and they just live here and they never get shared. But if you do share them, as mentioned before, when you do share them, they are in there for good. When you go through this sharing process, you are choosing where to put things. Now, depending on where you're sharing it from, this will look different. So if you're sharing it from documents, we have no idea what kind of thing it is. So you can put it anywhere. Versus if I share, when I do an example later from, say, the variations, it'll only allow you to put it into variations. And these buttons here line up pretty much exactly with these sections in the portal. If you want it in the timeline, which was this one, then you can absolutely do it. It's just a tick and a description. You can also do these from site diary, which we'll cover off in a second. So we'll share that. Can't be removed. I've talked about that already. It's in there for good. You can send revisions, but you can't remove any documents. And if I haven't mentioned already, neither can the client. So we've kept it fair in that way. If we go through to one of the estimates, so let's go and look at like that one. You'll find share buttons all over the place. So I can share from plans and takeoffs. I can share from the quote letter via the send quote button. We have, where are they? Variations is one of the other ones, where you've got share. Invoicing is another one. In fact, just while I'm thinking about this one, Schedule is an interesting one because we often get the question of, hey, can I share directly into the client portal? The answer at the present time is we can't direct share, but you can absolutely give it to the client via the portal. So to give a bit more clarity about that, when people are asking for this, they're usually thinking of it as the client viewing a live schedule. We don't have that capability. And the biggest hurdle to us adding it in has actually been controlling what the clients see, like trying to cover the scenario where you add something but you don't want it to be client visible. And hence we've left it the way it is, which is that you can generate the document, and the schedule video covers a lot more of this. Generate it however you want. The only point I will make is when you generate it, it'll reflect if it's open or closed, so you can minimize it to share a slimmed down version. Download that document, go back to job details or estimate details, or really wherever you want, doesn't matter. It's just got to be a details box, a details area and a documents box. You can absolutely just grab that and dump it in, and then you can share it from there. Let's do another example. So if we do sharing from, say, the variation screen, share, it's going to ask under the recipient section of any share button, it's going to ask the same set of questions. If a portal exists, do you want to put this in there? Yes or no? You'll notice if you go no, it removes like half the page because that's all sharing related. If you are putting it in the portal, we always list out who's invited. And this is to cover a case which has come up not that often, but here and there, where people start sharing things, but and then they're talking to the client, hey, did you see this thing I shared? The client's like, nah, didn't see it. And the case is that the client was actually never invited. So this is just to highlight who's actually looking at it. So if I share that one, same thing. Once it's in there, it's in there. And this particular thing would drop into the variation tab. Now, lucky last on this is the site diary. And the reason for putting this in its own section is that the site diary, as you may be aware if you've watched the site diary video, is just a kind of a grouping of all the updates. So whether you're adding it from the desktop version or whether you've got guys using the on-site app and they're sharing updates into here, they're coming from lots of different places. I treat the site diary, let's say 90%, as my own running set of notes on things that are happening, and 10%, rough numbers, but 10% to be shared out to the client. So I think of like the top 10% of stuff in here, I'm going to update the client on. So if I share something, 2 points. One is it goes directly into the timeline section, which was this one we spoke about earlier. And the other point is we had when this was early versions of the client portal, we had a lot of queries about, hey, like, what if my guys write something in here that I don't really want the client seeing? What then? When you share it, you get to change or edit. So there is actually no direct link between the on-site app and the client. It's got to be shared from this desktop version to get into their portal for that very reason of just separating your client and you guys. Lovely. So when we share it, we sometimes get questions like, hey, why did it copy itself? That's a bit weird. The reason being that we have the original post, this guy, and then the shared version. In my case, totally the same, but you can see, especially if you're toggling around on the right, it's useful to know what was shared to the client as opposed to what the original post was. If there is a difference, you can absolutely filter and just see one or the other or whatever suits you. You can also search and find them that way. But long story short, this is a great way of keeping the client up to speed. Now, quite a long video, so hopefully it's all made sense. As always, reach out with questions. Definitely go and preview the portals and get a sense of how it works. And yeah, hope it works well for you. Thank you.